don't know this stuff. So if you know this stuff, fantastic. It might just refresh your memory a little bit. If you don't know this stuff and you are training for fitness, for endurance, which is most people on this page, you should probably watch this and listen. So, training for fitness, for endurance. Now let's talk a little bit about endurance. Endurance is aerobic. That means it's with oxygen, and your capacity to take in and utilize that oxygen is of the highest importance. Now I've underlined oxygen capacity there because your oxygen capacity is, and we're right here, oxygen capacity. The bigger your oxygen capacity is, the more you can do in your aerobic zone, the more you are capable of doing, the more power you can produce, the faster you can move, and the more carbon dioxide, the more CO2 you can get rid of. So that is your VO2 max. Now the point of training endurance or training in your aerobic zone is to increase your VO2 max. That's the volume of oxygen that you can actually take in and utilize before you start producing lactate. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Now, how do I train aerobically? Well, you must stay below your lactate threshold. And for those of you who know your lactate threshold, fantastic. You can tune out for a second. If you don't know your lactate threshold and you don't have a heart rate monitor and you haven't done a fitness test or a threshold test, as long as you can still talk, just about hold a conversation, then you are more than likely in your aerobic zone. And when things kind of feel like they're getting tough, then ask yourself if you're starting to feel that build up in your legs and you're starting to feel that fatigue. Now that is probably likely that you're going above your lactate threshold. So you're going to start to go into your anaerobic zone, and that's not where we want to be if we're training aerobically. So how do I know that I am below my lactate threshold? Well, you could go a lot harder than you are right now, but it becomes time dependent, and it becomes very, very time dependent. So if you're working at a specific level, you're just going out for a run and you feel like, oh, how long could I hold this level for? And you think, maybe just a few minutes, you're probably above your lactate threshold and you're probably into your anaerobic zone. So if you are struggling, you are probably not aerobic. You've probably gone into your anaerobic levels. Now you should not be breathing that hard if you are staying aerobic. Okay, you should not be breathing that hard. Of course you'll be breathing harder than you would be if you were just sitting on your backside on the sofa, but it should not be hard. You should not be struggling, and you should not be breathing that hard. Your legs should not be struggling. So notice how I keep using the word struggling, hard, tough, okay? So this is kind of how to stay in your aerobic zone. Now we get to this bit. Working on your capacity. Well, what does that mean? I think about capacity as a river. Now if you go over to this little drawing here, if you're new to running and you're new to working out, you might have a river that's this big, this size. So the banks of your river and the depth of your river can take this much water before it overflows. Now you start training aerobically, and what you're doing is you're increasing the size, the width and the depth of your river, so you can do more. You can take in, imagine this is your oxygen capacity, the river is your oxygen capacity. And when you work aerobically, there's certain things that you improve upon which allow your river to increase its capacity, it increases its size. And then we get down to this one, and you've been working aerobically, and you've increased the capacity of your river from this to this. That's like 4 times the amount. Now, I know that's graphically that kind of might misrepresent things a little bit, but you get what I'm trying to say here. The river itself is getting bigger, so the capacity for water to flow down that river is increasing. Now, a lot of people, a lot of runners, a lot of triathletes, They work really, really, really hard, so hard, and they don't get the fitness gains that they're hoping for because they're not doing this work. They're not working on their aerobic capacity. They're working too much anaerobically. Now, when you work anaerobically, you don't increase the capacity of your river that much because you don't get what happens at the cellular level. So when we work on our aerobic capacity, we increase our ability to uptake and utilize oxygen, the VO2 max, and this works at the cellular level. So we get an improvement of the strength of your heart. We get an increase in the strength of your heart. The increase in the capacity per beat. So I've used that word capacity. If your heart is increasing in size and it's increasing in power, strength, it can basically beat harder. It can pump harder because the heart is a pump, remember. So it can pump harder and it can move more blood around your body per beat. So let's just say that your heart rate was 120 beats per minute and you were moving around 100 litres of blood per minute. And let's say you increase the strength of the heart and you increase the capacity of the heart per beat. So let's say your heart rate was 120 and when you first started exercising and your river was this big, you could move 100 litres of blood per minute around your body. Now, when you've done aerobic training and you have increased the size and the strength of your heart and the capacity per beat, you might be able to move 150 litres of blood per minute around your body. So your capacity is increased, okay? You also increase the capillarization at the local muscular level. So the legs, the abdominals, the obliques, all the working muscles when you train aerobically will increase their capillarization. That means that they can do this exchange of gases, the oxygen and the CO2. They can exchange the gases more readily, because there's more capillaries. They can get more blood through the muscles. You also increase the number of mitochondria. That's where the energy comes from. And the hemoglobin in the blood. That's how the oxygen gets transported around your body. Okay, so these are things that happen at the cellular level. You don't see them happening, but you can measure them by how much you can do at any heart rate, any given heart rate. So, like I said, 120 beats per minute. Let's just use that as an example. If you pump your heart 120 beats per minute, you might be able to run at 6 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour when your river is this big. But when your river is this big, at 120 beats per minute, you can run at 8 miles an hour or 9 miles an hour. And that's still aerobic because you've increased your VO2 max, your ability to inspire and use and utilize the oxygen and get the CO2 out and clear the lactate. Now, being better at utilizing and using the oxygen and getting the CO2 out improves your recovery from anaerobic bouts, anaerobic efforts. So if you happen to go running up a hill and you're gassed at the top, it might take you, when your river is this big, it might take you 3 minutes to feel normal again and be able to start running again. And when your river is this big, it might only take you 30 seconds to recover from that anaerobic bout. That's one of the massive benefits of being of using your aerobic training as an athlete, as an endurance athlete. Now, it also improves your ability to use fats for fuel. I'm not going to get too much into worrying about fats for fuel and that kind of stuff, but it does. It does not fatigue you as much as anaerobic workouts. So high intensity interval trainings are extremely taxing and extremely tiring. Now, aerobic exercise does not fatigue you as much. And that means that I can do it more times. I can do it more frequently. So I can get the benefits of doing more frequent workouts. All right. And it also means that I will need less recovery because it's less stressful and less taxing and less damaging as well. Because let's face it, if you're going to go high intensity interval training and high intensity workouts, you are going to damage your body and you need to recover. You need to recover from that. So I'm hoping there's a few light bulb moments happening while you're watching and listening to this. Now, it also improves brain function, something called plasticity, elasticity, and it improves the brain function. There's research that I can share on that if anybody wants it, but it improves your brain function. Okay, so longevity of your life, your brain is going to work better for longer. It also, and this is one of the things that a lot of people who, go hard and then go home and all they do is hit. Well, aerobic workouts, working in your aerobic zone improves your anaerobic capacity because you have an increase of muscle density. You get that increase in muscle density from aerobic training as well. It increases your time until you fail. It increases your time to failure. Now that's a good thing. We want to increase the time it takes for us to get to failure. All right? The less fit we are, the less big your river is, the less you're going to be able to do until you hit failure point. So that's a massive bonus. That's a huge positive thing for aerobic training. It also improves and increases your lactate clearance capability. And lactate is something, I might talk about this another time, but lactate is really, it's not a waste product, it's a byproduct. It's not a waste product, it gets converted into a different chemical, and we use lactate. Lactate can also be a fuel, or it is a fuel, should I say, for the heart. But that's something else I'm going to get into later, another time. But aerobic training improves your lactate clearance capability. Now, some of you might say, well, I feel that burn in my legs when I'm running. Yeah, that's the lactate. It's not lactic acid, it's the lactate. It's your ability to continue when you are producing lactate is only as good as how much you can get rid of. So if you can get rid of the lactate and clear that lactate out, i.e. convert it into something else, which is what our bodies do, then you can carry on for longer. It's the aerobic system that does this, that clears the lactate. It's not your anaerobic system that does it, it's your aerobic system that does it. So if you get better, if your river becomes bigger, you'll be able to clear more lactate. You'll be better at clearing lactate. Okay? So if you are an endurance athlete, or you're trying to be an endurance athlete, aerobic is where you want to be. And you want to be, for the majority of the time, like maybe 90% of your time spent training and working out should be in the aerobic zone. Maybe only about 10% of your working out time should be into this anaerobic zone. Okay? The aerobic zone gives your anaerobic capacity a boost as well, but vice versa doesn't occur. So when we train anaerobically, it's just really fatiguing. So you might have seen my red screen post the other day about don't chase fatigue, chase fitness. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video, because I'm talking to you about how training aerobically helps you to be better anaerobically and aerobically at the same time. But just purely working on your anaerobic system, doing the HIIT workouts all the time, does not increase your VO2 max. And that is the goal of an endurance athlete.